Hey everyone, welcome to The Path of Me. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson, and I'm so excited about my guest today. It's Dr. Lulu Shimek. I hope I pronounced that. Pronounced that right. And she's here from Asheville, North Carolina, where she has a clinic. She's a naturopathic physician and works with patients experiencing chronic disease, autoimmune disease. She's an expert in genetic health and digestive disorders, chronic pain, depression, anxiety, and fatigue. I think you cover the whole gamut. Basically, everybody
can
totally use your services, I think. So the name of her clinic is Epiphany Clinic. And welcome, Dr. Shimek. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. And you can call me Dr. Lulu. Everybody does.
Okay, Dr. Lulu. Thank you. So I wanted to find out, I'm always so fascinated about the evolution of each of my guests, you know, where they started and how they traveled their path and ended up just kind of aligning and finding their lane and connecting with their life's purpose, you know? So where were you born? And tell me a little bit about your background.
Sure, yeah. I was born in Pensacola, Florida on the naval base. And I never lived in Florida except for 6 months of my life. My parents moved immediately to Atlanta. And from there, then I lived there for so on and off, I guess you could say. My parents were divorced, and then I moved kind of all over with my mom. And I moved back to Atlanta when I was older. So I've lived, I think, in like 33 places.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah, not like different states, but in different like houses. Like I just have moved around a lot. Like I always say, I have like the turtle on my back. I can go anywhere I want to, but I'm
everywhere is home, I guess.
Everywhere is home. Yep.
Wow. So I know that you, I just through all of those travels and everything, you kind of had a bent towards health and wellness, right? From a young age. Would you say that's true?
That's totally true. My mother was, I guess she's an advocate of health, or was a health guru herself. I'm very into, you know, I was born in the 70s. So if you can picture that, you know, all about the hippie lifestyle. Yeah. So my mom was very into natural foods, and I didn't have any sugared cereal until I was like 8. Yeah. So totally. And she practiced yoga. So I started doing yoga with my mom at a very early age and meditating. Some of my earliest memories, she took me on like a pilgrimage to see her guru. So it was just like a lot of like early intertwinings of health and wellness at an early age.
And mindfulness. It sounds
and mindfulness. Yep.
They're great tools and probably have served you well throughout this journey, right? To be able to tune in and just, I'm a little envious because I grew up in a very 3D world, you know, where that wasn't even on the radar. So I think it's so awesome when I meet people who've had that foundation from such an early age, because it really helps to guide you and navigate all the different twists and turns of life, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, totally. And I think I've been always able to go back to those roots, and now they're kind of, I would say they're really more ingrained because, you know, as being a teenager and in my 20s, and I had all different types of different avenues to, let's say, throw me off my path.
Of course.
You know,
we always, and it's really kind of trying to bring ourselves back to center. It is difficult because there are a lot of good shiny distractions out there that can,
right,
you know, kind of pull at us, right, and move us in different areas. I know you studied interior design. That was kind of your first foray into higher education, correct?
Yes, I went to the University of Georgia and studied interior design in the art program there, and I've always been a big lover for the arts. So it's kind of my creative outlet. And my passion. And so that was kind of the underlying aspect. And then as I I don't know, grew up, I decided that wasn't really the path for me. And then it kind of developed into another avenue, but I still love that aspect of things, just like colors and artwork and supporting artists in the community.
That's so cool. And then somehow you ended up as a pastry chef in New York City. How did you make that transition? Like I mean, you're still being creative, but it's in such a different way and
right.
such a different culture going from Georgia, the South. I lived in South Carolina. I sure miss that. I lived in Greenville. So I sure miss that culture, and transitioning to New York City must have been crazy.
Yeah, it was quite the shift. Yeah, I when I was living in Athens, Georgia, where I went to school, you know, I was always looking for a different way to make money as a student, and baking had always been like my love. I love to make any type of, you know, cakes, cookies, anything like that. And so I was like, okay, I'll get a job at a bakery, and it was called Kumquat May.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Yes,
that's hilarious.
And so that's the job that I had. And then I really fell in love with like baking and more of kind of that, I don't know, that wholesale retail environment. And I got a lot of training and experience, but then I was also able to do it more on my own. So I created my own portfolio of cakes, because that was like what I really love to do. And so I wanted to learn more about alternative cooking and health cooking. So there was a school in New York, I can't remember the name of it right now, but anyway, I decided I wanted to go to school there. So it's like, okay, I'm going to move to New York and I'm going to go to school there, and this is what I'm going to do. So I moved there to go to school. And from there, I needed to work in New York. Of course, it's very expensive. Right. And so I was working doing pastry chef work there. I worked at a restaurant, and I also worked at an erotic bakery.
Wow. All the secrets. All the secrets are coming out now.
It was a restaurant and erotic bakery, so they made like funny, like, you know, erotic cakes.
Hilarious.
Like that. Yeah, so
that's
that was
something
funny
to put on your resume.
I know, totally. But I never went to that school because I found out that at the time they were older. Now that they have funds, but they didn't have any loans at that point of time, and you know, from the government, and so I just couldn't afford it. Right. So I did something else. But anyway,
you know, it's so interesting. We always kind of end up where we need to be, though, and every experience is like a thread, and then it forms the tapestry of our life, right? So you're just following your heart, and it took you to New York, and then I don't know, you became a hatha yoga teacher. Tell me about how that evolved and presented in your life.
Yeah, so I was living in New York, and it was only a short amount of time. I think I was only there like 9 months, and I like got totally chewed up and spit out. It's definitely, I love New York, but it's not the place for me. It's too many people, too much energy for my, I guess,
a lot of energy. If you're sensitive, and you're, especially if we're not, you know, now knowing what we know now, right? We're very mindful of our energy fields and protecting ourselves and clearing and all of that. But if you don't have that mindfulness, then you're in this mecca of millions of people in a condensed area. I can't imagine what it was like for you energetically.
Yeah, it was pretty wild, and I kind of have that personality of being attracted to energy. And so in that, I got kind of like thrown into the aspects of it, if that makes sense. Like I just to the vortex. So I just was like, oh my gosh, I can't take this anymore. Yeah. And so I called my mom. Of course, we always call our mom, right? Mom. Right. And she said, well, I know this great yoga center in California, the Expanding Light. And Paramahansa Yogananda is the guru of that center. And she said, why don't you see if they have a program you could go to there? And so they had a work exchange program where I could be a chef in the kitchen.
Perfect.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can learn all about all the natural food cooking that I wanted to, because they're vegetarian. And so I didn't even go there to learn to be a yoga teacher. I went there to learn about cooking.
And then the yoga fall. Well, it's really an embodied experience, right? It's a lifestyle.
Totally a lifestyle. Yeah.
So that's so cool. You got to immerse yourself, and then obviously it spoke to you, and you ended up going all the way into becoming a teacher. So that's cool.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved being there. You know, it's with all of the aspects of things that are happening on the planet right now, this shift, I was just, remembering that time myself, because it was like my own personal quarantine, so to speak. You know, it's like
Yeah.
I moved from New York to this very small mountain town in California with very small amount of people, and just immersed myself in health and yoga and meditation, like a lot. So it's the same kind of environment.
It's
I feel
so
like now.
interesting what you learn about yourself when you give yourself the space to connect in that way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and when it becomes a regular practice in your life, whether that's meditation or yoga, or and that can look different for so many people. I mean, for some people that meditation would be baking.
Right.
Or that meditation
Exactly.
might be hiking in the mountains, or, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have to look like something, right? But there's something about giving yourself that grace and connection that it's like your soul just kind of pulls you, right? Guides
Right.
you when you take the time to listen.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. If you can listen, I think that's the key.
How long were you there for? Oh, you froze.
I was there a year. Oh, can you still hear me?
I can. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. I was there for around a year.
And then where did you go from there?
From there, I moved to San Francisco.
Did you have a work opportunity, or what led you to go to the Bay Area?
Well, of course, I fell in love at the yoga
I
retreat.
knew you were going to say that. I had a feeling there had to be a man involved at some point in this.
Oh, right. Yeah. So I met a man during that time of my life. And so he was from London,
Mm-hmm.
and he wanted to do some traveling. So I said, okay, great. And so we left the yoga retreat center together, and then traveled all along the Pacific coast, and ended up in Oakland. So that's where I kind of like how I fell into San Francisco and the Bay Area.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know you ended up getting certified in aromatherapy, and then you got a master's of science, I think, in herbal medicine.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I did.
What inspired you to pursue that? Was it just a natural offshoot of the yoga, or was that something, top of mind, or did it just kind of organically happen?
Well, let's see, I was living in Las Vegas with my husband now, and different than the previous person.
Right.
Yeah. And so I became a massage therapist, and I wanted to really kind of go farther than I could as a massage therapist and work with my clients that I was seeing at the time. And so I've always had a passion for plants. And so then I learned about, let's see if I could, what can I do with aromatherapy and herbs? So that's when I started diving deeper into that realm. And then from there, I was wanting to go one step further. It's always another step further.
Right.
And I wanted to go to naturopathic medical school.
How'd you find this school? The school is it in Seattle?
It's in Seattle. Yeah, there's I think there's
what's
9
the
schools.
name of the school there that you attended? Was it?
Mm-hmm.
What was
it's Bastyr, Baster, Bastyr University. They have 2 campuses.
And you, wow, you were there for 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And went through their naturopathic doctoral program, which must have been really intense, but really fascinating and amazing at the same time.
Oh my God. It was the hardest and most intense thing I've ever done in my entire life. Like, there's nothing that compares to medical school.
Did it bring you to your knees? Sometimes those challenges, I mean, you know that you're on the right path, but you feel like you're being squeezed to the eye of the needle half the time, and like you're being crushed, but you know it's going to take you to that next level, right?
Yeah, totally.
Must have been challenging to get through that.
Yeah. And, I think the most rewarding part of it, of course, is being a doctor and helping patients, but also the community that you have in the medical school and in naturopathic medical school. Like the friends that I've made there, I will be like forever in my life, just like deepest bonds, because you're just a different type of environment, and you're just learning in this different way and creating these deeper friendships. So
that must have been so cool for you, because it really integrated so many aspects of things you were interested in.
Yeah.
The body, the mind, botanicals, everything, right?
Right. Yeah. I took like everything I learned and then multiplied it by like a bazillion.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And after that, you followed your heart to Asheville.
Mm-hmm.
And that was around, was it 2015 or what year was that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2015. Mm-hmm. After I graduated, my husband and I moved to Asheville for me to start my practice here.
So you opened your center in Asheville, North Carolina, and tell me about your practice. Tell me what kind of, what's your passion? What's your demographic? Tell me what's kind of fueling your soul right now in your work.
Right. Yeah. I would say the best part of my practice, or what fuels me, is really helping patients find their truest joy and happiness through health. Because, when I see patients, it's almost like the raisin, it's like they've been squeezed so dry of their like life force.
Yeah.
And, and so I help them like plump up the raisin again, and so finding, and, there's not I do have specific, like women's health or digestive disorders, specific things that I really love, but they all go down deep to that core reason, which brings people in, and that's finding their passion.
It's down to your soul.
Yeah.
Ultimately, because your physical issues are a manifestation of your energetic body.
Totally, they are.
Your connection to your soul. So I think what's really interesting to me is most people don't identify that or make that connection. They feel like the body is like this external thing separate from their emotional body or their energetic body, when in fact it's just an expression of, right?
Yeah, it's so true. I think that the medical community, the typical medical model, has really helped people, unfortunately, to place their illness in a box, right? And so it's like, this is my box, this is what I need to do. And it's not really connected to any part of me. And then it's also, once a person has been diagnosed, they focus, like all their energy goes into that illness, and they have goggles on, and they just can't see anything else, because it's like, then it just manifests more and more and more and more and more and more and more.
What you put your attention on energetically is growing, and what you're feeding it, fear, anxiety, is growing the physical issue. And then on top of that, instead of getting to the core and the cause and the root of it, there's this real quick attack of let's medicate it, let's numb it, let's bury it, let's put a Band-Aid on it, so you don't actually have to look at that. Right.
And that's the total typical medical model
from what you practice. So share with us how your approach differs, and I feel your approach is the way most of us should be going. We should be looking at those, causes and those roots and those deeper emotional things that are being expressed through the body, right?
Yeah. I think the first part of when I work with patients, it's almost like a timeline experiment or timeline identification. So I look at everything that's happened and pick out the things as a detective, what has stimulated this imbalance, right? Because we all, when you're on that fine line of balance, you can have a little bit, it throws you off, right? And so you're like one step up, one step down, but you're okay. You can come back into balance. But then the more and more things that tip you off of the scale,
the gap widens, right? Until the balance is totally off.
Exactly. So I look at all those different things in the timeline, from the physical to the emotional to the mental, because it's very holistic. It's not just, as you were mentioning before, it's if you have a symptom, if we just look at that symptom, everything else in the equation becomes obsolete. And it's just like, you're like, that doesn't make sense. We got to look at everything in the equation.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the whole, we are a whole and complete being. You can't just look at one fractal.
Right, exactly.
And think you're going to fix yourself or heal
Right.
yourself, right? There's just, we are not only whole beings, we're multidimensional beings.
Yeah.
There's so much complexity to who we are energetically.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping to bring more awareness to this topic, and this subject, because we're at such a pivotal time in the world for humanity. We are literally at that nexus point and that shift point where people are waking up, I feel.
Yes, totally.
And becoming more aware of the things we're talking about. It's not so crazy, right?
Right, yeah.
Becoming a little more acceptable to talk about your feelings and your energy and your auric field. They might not have the terminology, but they're getting a sense that there is something shifting and changing in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so interested to know what your perspective is, your higher perspective around this whole viral COVID-19 situation that is happening for humanity. I'm sure you have your perspective as both a physician and then also as a spiritual teacher, naturopathic doctor. So what are your feelings around what's happening and what you feel might come of this?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it does have different aspects. So if we, from the physician point of view, I mean, of course, all of my views become one as I work with patients, but from the physical point of view, I mean, I guess it's really all connected. Let me talk about it that way. So when we have a place of imbalance, if we're talking about back into that place of imbalance, the only way to come back into balance is to clear the things that aren't working. Right. And so the only way for us to clear the things that aren't working on the planet is just to have a huge purge.
Right.
And so that happens. Unfortunately, people are having to leave the planet because they're no longer serving the planet. Right. And their views and their whatever aspect of their lives are not serving, and they're choosing to move on from the planet. That's part of it. Yeah. The other part of it is all the different layers of I guess you could say the economy that aren't working well and aren't serving the greater good of the planet.
Right.
And then also from the physical aspect, I think of it as I study the cells a lot. That's like kind of my, my slogan is igniting cellular
you're doing
freedom.
Some cool stuff at the DNA level. So I really want to deep dive into that also.
Yeah.
but go on. I didn't mean to, I want to kind of go there next, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, we'll go there next. We won't forget. So from the cellular point of view, if our cells are in this place, we have our human cells, we have the cells of everything on the planet around us, the plants, we have the animals, everything has a cellular aspect. And they're overloaded because they're not having their true purpose, their true vision is not being able to move forward in a way that has been planned. Right. And so again, it's that kind of like clearing and cleansing of the planet. And I call it like the planetary reboot. It's like, okay, the only way that we can get forward to this massive vision, which all of us of light and health have been holding, is for that reboot.
Right. I think that is so well said. And I agree 100%. And what's been so beautiful for me to see is not only people going through that reboot, but on a planetary level, nature.
Yeah.
Going through that reset because everything's just paused. So nature is being given some space too, right? To come back. Wildlife is being able to, I think, regenerate, or plant life is being able to regenerate. I've been seeing a lot of pictures on Facebook of like no smog in LA for the first time ever. Or you can see the Himalayan mountains or whatever it is. But it sure seems like that reset and reboot is happening on a large scale.
Yeah, I mean, when we ask for something over and over again, like, you know, we want to have clean air, we want to have clean water. Well, the planet listens to us. And so this is what it has. It's its response is like, okay, well, you guys, there has to be a break.
Yeah. And what's been so beautiful too is hopefully this new awareness that people are going to have around cause and effect will maybe impact choices and lifestyle changes that will honor that.
Yeah.
I'm hoping anyway. I'm hoping.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. And from the health perspective, I think people are having some people are still are having more work, as we see from the essential work community, but then other people are having this time where they're able to have much, much better self-care than they have in a really long time. So my vision that I'm holding for that community is that they will see like things that have been manifesting in a way of ill health, they'll be able to see through that, you know, like, wow, if I take a break and I don't work myself to the bone,
I have a little more work-life balance, right? Because working from home allows that. You can kind of step away and pet your dog or hug your child, or there's something about that balance that I'm hoping people will recognize is going to benefit their overall well-being, which will translate into hopefully more alignment with in their work and life.
Right. Yeah, with their purpose on the planet, which has been lost, right?
Yeah. Yes. It's so important for people to actually connect to their inner being. And there are so many people who are not, they're disconnected. And they're in jobs that aren't satisfying, or they're not using the skill sets, and they're not showing up as the person they're meant to be here on the planet. So I'm hoping that this time will give people a little bit of awareness and a little bit of a reset and connection to maybe ponder that a little bit.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, all this has already happened, and we're already in the future, right? Really. And so we can already hold the space for all of that. So,
yes.
You know, personally, I've been like meditating every morning when I get up, and like, what do I want? What's this new vision that I want to hold for the planet? You know, what's the transition of people's lives? And for me, it like really comes from this heart-centered place of like, if we can just really reconnect to the heart and embody this place of love for ourselves and for humanity, we can have such a shift.
Such a powerful shift. And it all does start with us. It starts with us healing our wounds. It starts with us shedding our density and the things that no longer serve us, and dropping all that weight and ballast so that we can align more fully with our souls and our higher selves. And I love that you do that. I do the same thing, where I kind of I'm holding space for the highest and best outcome. And that energy is going out, and for those who are ready to align with it, that's going to assist them in some way, you know. And then there are other people who aren't ready to align with that and who are going to make different choices, which is fine. Everybody's walking their own path, right?
Right.
I'm so excited to talk to you about this new Viral Warrior line that you're creating. And we touched on it briefly when I interviewed Adora Winquist a couple weeks ago, but I'd love to hear what the vision was and how you came up with the formulation and just everything that went into that thought process and what it does exactly to help people. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sure. Yeah. I'll talk about that in two steps. So let's talk first about how I formulate, because I think that's part of your question.
Yes.
So when I do formulating, of course, I have like all of the brain knowledge, right, from all of the aspects of studying herbalism and from naturopathic medicine. But then I have all my past life information as well. And I know I've been connected to many lifetimes of healers. So I also bring in that information as well. And then I also connect with my inner being and spirit about what herbs, which might not be an herb that I would usually bring in, but what herbs or essential oils or stones are ready to come in to serve the formula.
So it's really an integrative process, it sounds like.
It's very integrative.
Are you using different types of crystals? Or I know you're infusing them with sacred geometry and energy too. It's so multifaceted, which is cool. And what's really exciting to me is this really is the new direction for healing. I love that you're so progressive. I love that you're so intuitive, and you're bringing all of this together to create these formulations.
Yeah, I do use crystals in my work, and it's funny because
in a different way, right? I mean, don't you feel like the use of it is evolving? It's not the traditional 3D way. We're moving more into a 5D, 7D kind of matrix and energetic structure. So it's I'm just curious, are you using them in a different way?
Yeah, one aspect is that there are so many stones and crystals, and my knowledge is not like, I have to use a lot of books for that aspect. And I love books. So sometimes, I will get like an answer, a message like to look, or like I'll just research and then like research a bunch of stones. And then I don't have these stones, of course, like, around me.
You're going to find them.
Right. And so what I connect in with the energy of that stone, whether either that's through meditation or when I'm making the formula. And that's how I kind of pull that energy of the stone into the formula. And we can do that with any aspect as we're working. So, sometimes if it's a plant, I really want the plant to be in the formula, because that's part, but the gem or the stone. But
the energy transcends space and time.
Exactly.
It's not a physicality. So that is very much possible. And I love that you're using so much intuition and guiding you in these formulations, because when we do tune in, oftentimes we're guided to something that is so random that never would have occurred to us from a linear mindset.
Right. Yeah.
And then you come lean in, and it really does make perfect sense, when you do a little more research or whatever the case may be. So when you open yourself up and can really tune in, that's really, really cool.
Yeah. And the Viral Warrior line, which is part of the Zenergy Medicinals line, those formulas are all created for the DNA. And so that's the other aspect of the formulating that I work with Adora, is that we're working on something that really is targeting the cells. So it's very different than just like, going to the store and buying, a
supplement or something.
Supplement. Yeah. Which is overly manufactured and has no energetic aspect of it at all. Right. It's very, very, very different. And a lot of the herbs that I use in my formulas, I grow and process myself too. They're, at the farm that Adora and I work at. And so they're grown in a very, very high vibration and small environment. So that also comes into the formula too. It's like they're very multifaceted. And so when you're designing something from the seed up, and every intention that you have for that formula is always being put in it, and the highest intention of that plant is then into the formula as well. It's like the formula becomes this like magic volcano of like, love and energetic wellness.
I love that.
Yeah.
And so is it something oral, or how do people use this product? Is it like a tincture that you take, or is it a roll-on type of thing, or is it in a pill form? Tell me, how does it present and how do people use it?
Yeah, so the products that I designed for Zenergy Medicinals and the Viral Warrior line specifically, I did the tincture, and then I also did a tea, a chai, and both of those are all targeted towards the immune system and the respiratory cells to really help those cells to have a shield, which is what we call it, the Viral Warrior, to allow that protectiveness, because energetically, we need that protection too. Not, that's what I feel most of my patients have been saying now in this time of crisis, right? It's like they feel energetically depleted because everyone around them is in this place of fear, which is not the place we will need to be, because if we're not, it's not fearful, nothing, we want to be able to embrace the change.
Right. Fear is a choice.
Yeah.
And we all need to be mindful of the direction and the energy that we're putting out into the world. Do we want to elevate and lift the world and focus on higher outcomes, evolution, positivity? Do we want to put that energy out into the world, faith in a higher outcome after all of this is said and done? Or do we want to feed that lower vibration of fear? It's a choice, and I really want to urge people who are listening to this conversation to be mindful of that. You get to choose every moment how you are showing up in this world. You can elevate, or you can buy into the density and the weight of fear, and all of it goes into the collective energetically. So be mindful of what you're putting into the collective with your thoughts and your energy, right?
Yeah, so important, right? For, it's so interesting that everything has been called like this social distancing, when it's actually like creating a larger web or network of community from underneath. It's just been very, philosophically think about it. I'm like, well, they created, them out there created this whole thing about keep your social distance. But at the same time, we have to create the really like a deep community connection for the collective, as you said, to be able to move forward into this new space. So it's really
interesting, hasn't it, to see how people are forming connections with long lost friends, family. People are doing Zoom calls. I think humanity has a need and a longing for connection, social connection, and they will find a way.
We always find a way.
So even though there is this physical distancing, there is this energetic connection still happening. Family members and friends, and even networking groups. Like I'm part of a networking group. We just did a Zoom networking. Those foundations and connections are so important. And those, when people are coming together and laughing and loving, that definitely is raising the vibe of everyone.
Yeah, I'm in a women's group that we met today actually, called Held. And so we started it in January. And it's been such a place for me because we created the safe capsule. Yeah. And for us to be able to have that place of connection with each other for support is so important.
It's so important. And of course, we have our spouses. Is your husband working from home?
Yes, he is.
You, of course, probably still have to come in because you have to see patients. So,
well, I transitioned my entire practice to online.
Really?
Yeah. So I see all my patients virtually, which is great.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I feel like this really is going to shift the medical community, and they're going to see how much they can actually transition to online diagnosing, which I think would be so much more effective and streamlined. And I'm hoping that's one of the outcomes of this whole thing.
Yeah, I think it will be a big outcome.
More accessible, to people. They don't have to physically drive somewhere, stuff like that. But I wanted to go back and ask you a little bit about this farm. I know you're doing. Tell me a little bit about this. I think it's working with veterans or something. It's tied to that. Can you explain a little bit about where you're growing your herbs and medicinal plants?
It's called the Veterans Healing Farm. It's in Hendersonville, North Carolina, which is just right outside Asheville. And I am the plant medicine director at the farm. I first started working there right after we moved to the area. A friend of mine was a member and she was volunteering, and she said, come out and, see the farm. And so I met the owner, John Massey, and I said, here's my vision. I've always wanted to have a medicinal garden and help to teach people about plants. And he said, well, let's do it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so part of the farm has the medicinal garden. And then the other part of the farm is the vegetables and flowers that we grow for the volunteers and veterans that are part of the farm, but we also take the produce and flowers to the VA hospital once a week during the summer when it's active, and they get to have the produce and flowers for free.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Have you seen a huge response from the veteran community that is participating in this? Has it been healing for them?
Yeah, it's been
soil and nurturing something, and probably receiving some sort of nurturing of their own soul in the process.
Yeah, I think the biggest aspect for me that I see is we created a herbal boot camp.
Tell me about that. What does that look like?
Yeah, so what happens is we have 15 to 20 veterans that come out for the weekend, and they stay at the farm. We have a bunkhouse, and they're provided meals and all the great aspects of staying at the farm. And then from there, they get to learn about the plants. So they're immersed in the botanical garden, and they get to formulate their own formulas. So we focus on specific things like insomnia, fatigue, immunity, pain. So we have specific things that veterans...
Trauma or something?
Yep, exactly.
How cool.
Yeah, and so they learn all about the plants. We pick specific ones that are going to really help the vets the most. And then they have a toolbox that they get to have as a gift from the farm. And then they get to make all weekend.
That's so cool.
Learning how to make teas and yeah, it's really amazing. So that's the most impact that I've seen from the farm is just really the veterans being able to come out. We have all different types of workshops.
How do they find you? Like, is it a select group or?
It's an application process.
So if you could provide that information, I'd love to include it.
Yeah, we don't have one right now because we're still in the we don't know exactly what's going to be happening.
Right.
Yeah. So, but our projected next boot camp is for the end of September. So as soon as I know that, I can give the information to you, but it will be on the Veterans Healing Farm website. And then they just go to that, and it's only for veterans. And then they fill out the application, and we usually have a lot of applicants, and then we choose 15 to 20 from that group, and then they get to come to the...
I would think it'd be real. I mean, that is so cool that they do that for veterans only.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I could just see that becoming reaching a broader base of people who, there's such a need for it.
Yeah, it really is.
Such a need for workshops like that help people, because to some degree, and this is just my personal opinion, but I think people are as you know, we've transitioned energetically as a planet into a higher dimensional space, right? And so I think a lot of people who have been, spiritual and doing their yoga and their whatnot, they are still kind of tied to those 3D tools. And this is more 5D to me as far as energy and approach to wellness, balance, spiritual alignment, energetic alignment, and things like that. And I'm hoping, I feel like the community that is spiritual is going to see that it's time to maybe look into these other things that are becoming available, or create new higher vibrational, higher dimensional templates and practices, and seek out things that are going to enhance your health, mental, spiritual, and emotional health and alignment in a more powerful way, because we are shifting into a higher dimensional reality.
Right, which is totally true. And getting back to what you were asking me about working with the genetics, because that's what my foundation is. I'm really moving into this place of like, how can we shift our DNA? Because shifting our DNA is totally possible. And healing, shifting, and changing the vibration of our DNA allows us to move from like that old paradigm or that old level of thinking into a new level of thinking, And
it's all about shifting the DNA, because what we're talking about as far as ascension and 5D, For those of you in the audience who don't know what the hell I'm talking about, we're talking about a higher energetic vibratory existence on the planet Earth. So we are taking in higher dimensional energies, higher frequency energies are coming into the planet and have been for the last few years. And the human who lives on the planet's surface has to be able to absorb that light and integrate that light into the human body to have a comfortable existence. Exactly. And that energetic integration for the human body creates your reality and experience. So as you raise your light quotient, as you reprogram the DNA, as Dr. Lulu is talking about, you're able to integrate that light and drop density, which is, it's a multifaceted process because you do have to do that inner work and be releasing the past and releasing the traumas, and you have to be dropping the density in order to create space for that light to integrate more fully. Mm-hmm. But it's really important at this time to be more expansive and open in terms of your consciousness, because I feel like a lot of people are kind of at this, have plateaued and reached the ceiling, and they feel there's something more, but they're not really sure what that looks like or how to reach for it or how to access it. Mm-hmm. I don't know. What are your feelings about that?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think the plant medicine, is such a great way for us to shift, because the plants are so wise. They've been here, longer than anything else on the planet. And they can communicate with ourselves, especially the bud of the plant, which is, is the embryonic way of communication. Because it's like, it talks to our cells like, okay, here you go. Here's this like great information that you can use. And so if we think about, people think, oh, I'm just going to take this, it'll make me feel better. It does. But if we really activate the plants, or we take their activation, I guess is a better way to describe it, take that activation, and then we think about it activating ourselves, or it's programmed and activated to activate the cells within us. That was a lot of activation words.
We're getting your point.
Right.
And you're intentionally connecting, energetically activating, integrating, immersing yourself in that energy and accepting it in a holistic and energetic way. You're going to empower your healing.
Exactly. And the plant medicine, and you can do that through food. Food is a plant. Right. And it has so much energy, and we've totally distorted it with lots of in different ways, which is a whole nother conversation.
Right. That's another 3-hour conversation.
Yeah. But from the plant medicine perspective, it has also been distorted. And so getting back to that true root, and the best way to do that is to grow your own. And that's what we teach at the farm too, is, there's lots of plants that can grow in your backyard. And
or on your balcony.
Or in your balcony, in your tiny apartment, whatever, and grow them when you can, and then make your own medicine. It's so easy. So easy. And then share it with your family, share it with your neighbors, learn how to use it. That's how my mission on the planet is is to teach people how to make their own medicine and use it in a way to empower and heal their DNA that they've never imagined.
So how do we learn this? Do you offer workshops? I mean, right. I know that people are aware that plants are food, and food is nutrition and fuel for the body, but how do we take it a step further? Do you do workshops online, or do we have to fly to Asheville? I'll come.
Right, yes. Asheville is a great destination.
I will come.
I am working on creating more of that platform, and I do offer workshops. One of the things that you mentioned before is that I do have a book that I'm writing that will be coming out in spring of 2021. And that is a first of a series of 4 books that is going to help you to learn how to use specific tools, and plants are one of those tools to integrate and elevate the DNA. And so that's one way. And then also I am creating more of those workshops, because that's a big desire for people. They want
such a need for it. We need you, Dr. Lulu.
I'm here to help.
Yes, and when you get close to publishing your book, give me a call and let's get back on here and talk about it and
Yeah, I'd love that.
plug it so people know where to find it and know when you're launching it and when it's
Mm-hmm.
available. I think that would be, you know, so powerful, and such a great tool for people, or resource.
Yeah.
So thank you for writing it, because we can all benefit from
You're
that
welcome.
information. I'm so excited that we got to have this conversation and connect, because clearly we're speaking the same language, even though I'm not a doctor. I'm an ascension coach, but it's kind of similar in some
Right.
way.
Yeah, we all speak the same language. It's just how it comes out, you know, and we're, you know, in the different.
We're all in our own lanes, but doing
Right.
our work to
Mm-hmm.
get people where they need to be, or where they want to be.
Right.
You know, if they're off track. So where can people find you? What's the best way to reach you if they
Mm-hmm.
want to have, you know, meetings with you, or, you know, I know you're doing remote.
Right. Yeah.
So maybe you're accessible to people who aren't necessarily in Asheville. I don't know.
Yeah, I see patients all over the world. And the best way to find me is my website, which is doclulu, doclulu.com. It's super easy. Yeah. And you can go there and you can make an appointment to see me as a patient. I have visits there. You can also, if you're looking for a way to connect with me from a business point of view, you can also make a business meeting with me there too. Because one of my missions is to connect with people with plants all over the world too. So that's another way.
That's so cool. That's so awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
For sharing that. I'll put that website down below, and I'll also put all the information for the farm and everything at the end of the video, and also down below in the description, so people can access those links. But
great, thank you.
I want to ask you one last thing. You know, you can't go through life without overcoming adversity, right? So what has been one of the things that has helped to guide you and help you in those times of struggle? Because I know a lot of people right now are in that fear mindset, and I just thought maybe you could offer some words of wisdom and something that's kind of helped you navigate tough times.
Yeah, I think I have two things that I use for my tools for health. Navigation through the rocky waters. One that I mentioned before is meditation. Daily meditation, even if you can just 5 minutes to connect and tune out. You know, you're tuning in, but you're tuning out. And so that's number one. And the other one is to really tap into what brings you happiness. So for me, it's like cooking, listening to music, being outside, working with the plants. And the more that you can connect with that thing that brings you love and happiness, the more the adversity just falls away, you know?
Great advice. I love that, and I agree 100%. So thank you so much for your wisdom. I'm so grateful for your time.
Thank you for your time. I had a wonderful time.
So awesome to meet you here, and it's going to be my goal to come out to Asheville and meet you in person.
Yeah, anytime you need a place to stay, we have a great Airbnb, so you're more than welcome.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yep.
That's so great to know. Yeah. Oh, now we're going to be best friends. We're going to be talking after we get off this conversation. Don't hang up. Anyway, to my audience, thank you so much for tuning in, for supporting the channel. I hope that you learned a little something today, and that you're kind to yourselves, love yourselves, and check out the links I'll be putting in the description below. So y'all have a great day. Love y'all. Thanks, Dr. Lulu.
You're welcome. Thanks so much.